What's going on, guys? So while the Z4 is down for the count and we're waiting to do turbos on that, I decided I wanted to take this time to try to upgrade the fuel pump on this. So I got the Precision Raceworks 2.5 fuel pump upgrade specifically for the Z4. So the Z4 uses its own. You can't use the other E90 or E82 fuel pump upgrades. You have to use this specific one. So I'll link it down below just to show you guys. We're going to attempt to take this on. Also, it's going to help because I have to remove the downpipes on this before I start removing the turbos. So I'm going to remove the exhaust, so most of the exhaust from the downpipes back. And I'm going to show you the tool that I got from Amazon that really makes the job easier and helps out a lot. So you'll get to see that as well. Here we have the parts that we're going to use. So that we have the Walbro upgraded fuel pump. Should be plug and play. We still have to take apart the fuel pump assembly on the car and fit this on, so there is still a bit of modification, but it's supposed to be a lot easier to fit in. It's genuine here from TI Automotive, and then here's the fuel filter sock over here that we're also going to fit on. And then I'm not quite sure on this. This is kind of a guess, and I'm going to try to install these lines. These upgraded fuel lines are for the E90, E92, E82 cars. I'm not sure if it's going to work out for the Z4, but I did buy it anyways just to see. So we're going to try to fit those on. Also, this fuel pump from Precision Raceworks is made to stay submerged. So you don't have to worry about having your car a quarter or lower in gas, even though you shouldn't with direct injection. This will always stay submerged and acts more like the stock one. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. As for now, we'll go ahead and move on to removing what we need to on the car. Here's one of the tools that we'll be using that will help out a lot. Just removing the cat back side of the exhaust, or in this situation, the catless back side of the exhaust. This just makes it easier to pop off the hangers. And like I said, I'll link this down below. Here's another tool that you're going to want. This is more universal and also works with the E80 series and the E90 chassis. So this is just a tool to remove the ring that allows access into the gas tank so you can get the fuel pump out. It adjusts to the width, so it's pretty universal. I'll also link this down below. We have this brace here that we're going to take off. So we're going to remove all these bolts as well as these crossbars here, just to make it easier and have more access to the gas tank. So we're going to remove all of that. And so you see that wiring that you won't have, that's part of my underglow. So all I have to do on my end is just cut those zip ties. So I don't really have to worry about that too much. And you guys won't have wiring. So yeah, let's get all of this stuff out of the way. Just to show you guys and you don't get confused, there's a total of, let's see how many bolts. One bolt at the end there for this cross brace. Another bolt here towards the middle. So we got that one. And then as you can see, as you come over here, there's this little one that connects to the shield over here. And then two at the end. So I already took off one, but there's another one over here. So take off all of those bolts in order to release this brace. And then it'll be the same on the other side. I'll get those off and then show you guys the next step and what bolts to take off, just so you guys know what specific bolts and you don't take off any that don't need to actually be taken off. All right, guys, so both of the cross brace bars are out. And as you can see, I lined up the bolts in the order of which they go in for each of these. I do want to mention, even though I don't drive this car in the winter, and I take really good care of it by washing the undercarriage a lot and all that good stuff, some of these bolts were pretty corroded, so just make sure that you blast them with PB Blaster before you take them off, just in case, so you don't snap one of them and you end up turning the job into a much longer one because of it. So I just wanted to mention that. This other piece came off with those bars as well. So that's kind of tucked underneath of the bars and supported by those. So once you take these off, this will automatically come off with them. Now we're left with this aluminum plate here that kind of acts as like a under tray for the rear differential. We're not gonna take it off from here just because we want it to come down all together with this other brace over here. So we're gonna undo these 2 bolts and then this one on the side. So there's another one on the other side. I don't think we'll have to take off these black ones, but I will let you guys know. As for now, we're gonna take off those bigger bolts and see if this comes all down in one piece. So this all did come off in one piece, like I said, except I did need to take off those 2 extra black nuts that were over here that I was telling you guys I may not have to. I did have to take those off in order to get this whole shield off. And just to let you guys know, if you don't want this to bend too much, you definitely can take this off before you take this one by undoing these 2 bolts over here. So that way when you bring this whole thing down, this doesn't bend. So it's up to you if you want to leave it all in one piece or if you want to take these 2 apart. So again, I set aside the bolts in order. We're now ready to drop the exhaust. So I think I'm going to start from the front and work my way back and start with undoing the bolts. So I'll show you guys which bolts I'll start with, and then it will be a mixture of bolts and hangers. Just like I showed you guys on those, I'll show you what I start with and then go from there. All right, so pretty simple here. We're going to start with these bolts over here for the downpipes. So we're going to unhook the exhaust here, and then once I'm done removing this and the exhaust gaskets, which you should replace after doing this, I'm going to head down here towards the middle, and there's another bracket over here that we're going to have to remove. What I recommend doing is, after taking off this bracket, since we are disassembling so many parts, is just put it back in place in the meantime so you don't lose it and you know where it goes. So after that middle bracket, all of that weight is supported by that bracket and the downpipes. So as you get further down, so we don't need to touch that at all. It doesn't hang from there at all. When we go down further, here is where we have the other exhaust hanger, but it's just a bolt. So you have to do this external Torx here on both sides. So this side and that side right there. So we'll undo those. And then lastly, it's the traditional exhaust hanger right here, which I will push out with that tool on both sides here. And then the exhaust will come off completely. I put a jack stand on one end just so it doesn't completely fall off. And I'm going to do the same with another one towards the back here. But as you can see also, I have a muffler delete. So this may look a little different on your guys' end. Now let's go ahead and get this exhaust completely off. All right, so as you can see, I put the exhaust here off to the side as best as I could, just because there's really no room to put it anywhere else, especially because I don't want to ruin the man cave side of the garage. So here it goes. And now the next step is we're going to remove a couple things from underneath. So as you can see, it's a lot more open now. And here's the first thing we're going to remove. There's this giant heat shield in the middle. So pretty self-explanatory on removing the bolts. Just see where all the bolts are on the outer perimeter of the heat shield. I don't believe there are any in the middle. Mainly, yeah, just on the perimeter. See, that's pretty long. It goes all the way over here. So we'll remove that giant piece. And then because I'm going to attempt to also do the fuel lines to the upgraded ones, I'm going to remove this under tray here that kind of hides the fuel line and a bunch of other lines here. So that's a pretty big one as well. It goes all the way up here. So I'm going to go ahead and work on removing those two, which will open up even more space on the car. Now that that heat shield is off and this under tray for the lines over here is off, this is what everything looks like. And just to let you guys know as well, you're going to have to undo some of the bolts over here in order to take off the heat shield because it's tucked underneath this other heat shield. So just make sure you take off these bolts as well. Same with this one, but like I said, I was going to take that under tray off, so I didn't really need to put it back. So now we're left with all the space to get to the fuel pump. And here we have the fuel line and a connector. So in order to take off this connector, we're going to push this little slide up and then pull the connector out at the same time. And then with the fuel line, there's a little ring. So you're going to push in on the fuel line and push in on the ring in order to remove the fuel line. And then once that's done, we're going to use the tool that I showed you guys in the beginning to remove this lock ring counterclockwise. And now my fuel level is about a quarter or lower. I don't remember. It's definitely less than a quarter of a tank left because I wanted to do that only because I knew I was going to be doing this. So make sure you have a bucket to catch all the fuel that will spill out once you remove the cover. So hopefully you don't have a lot of fuel. Make sure to run the car low on fuel, not too low because again, you have direct injection. You don't want to run the fuel too low, but a quarter should do. All right, so that's a lot of steps to do at once, and I'm going to need two hands. So the next time you guys see anything, I will have the cap off of here and you'll be able to see inside the tank. As you can see, I didn't quite take off that ring yet, and it already started pouring out some fuel. So I decided to just leave it like that for now and drain as much fuel as I can this way so that when I take the ring and the assembly out, it doesn't all just gush out. So, but you can see I have the line disconnected and the harness disconnected and kind of just tucked them out of the way. The fuel line's over here hanging because like I said, we're going to try to upgrade that. So I removed it from the little retainers. So let's see if I can find them all. There's little retainers, one right there, one right here that kind of hold it in place. But yeah, I'll get back to you guys once I have this out. All right, so that filter assembly is off. And as you can see, just to get this connector out of the way and avoid it from it getting wet, I also just zip tied it up there. So you can see those two lines are disconnected. You needed to disconnect those in order to get the filter out. So I'll show you guys the filter. Here's the filter, so you can see those two connections in the rear I disconnected, and then also the plug right there. You can see the pins. I also unplugged it in order to get this completely out. And again, also be very careful because I actually had this happen to me. When I was trying to slowly take it out, I dropped it into the bucket and it splashed fuel all over the ground.
The things I do for love.
I was so careful for most of the time up until then, and I ended up making a big mess. If I wouldn't have dropped this in the bucket, then I wouldn't have had that big mess and I would have done this correctly. But I ended up making that mess. So yeah, here's the assembly. We're going to move on now to removing the actual pump itself, which is in there. And I'm going to try to give you guys the best view that I can. But you can see that little black lever over there in the right. I'll try to zoom in on it. That is the float, and I'll show you guys what steps to do in order to get this out, because there's multiple steps that you have to do before you take it out. One of the steps is actually separating this connector here. So you can see there's a yellow and blue. You want to separate them from each other because there are two connectors that go to two different sides of the tank, I believe. I'm not quite sure on that, but that's what I think. One of the connectors goes across the tank and one of them goes to the pump. So you have to separate them in order if you want to take this out. So we'll do that first. All right, so that connector is separated now. You can see the yellow one over there and the blue one still hanging here. So now we have another line to separate, but this is directly to the pump over here. So you can see here, this line, shoot, let's see if I can try to get a better look at it. There's this line here. You can see there's the button or the push pins to release right here. They're a lighter gray. So that goes to the other side of the tank, and then we need to separate that from this one. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So I got those separated, and now there's also another fuel line. So you see that black thick line in the middle of the screen there. I'll zoom in. So that line, you will also need to pop that off of the top of the fuel pump. So you can't really see, but you can feel around. So if you reach in there and try to feel for the end of it, just pop it off, and that is the last thing that you need to pop off before taking out the fuel pump. So we'll unseat the fuel pump. Just be very careful when unseating it from the bottom, just kind of trying to pull up on it so that we can get it out. So I removed the assembly, and if this looks a little different, I actually put the cover back on, or I should say the filter assembly cap back on, just because I didn't want this wide open. So I just did that for now. That's why that looks like that. And I'll show you guys over here, the fuel pump itself, right here, the float. You want to make sure you keep it underneath, tucked over here. I was able to get the pump out like this. So the top first, and you kind of got to orientate this big bulge over here out first before you get the rest of the assembly out. And also here is the clip. So this is where it clips into the bottom. So before you even tug on it, make sure that you press on this to release it before pulling it out so you don't break anything. So as you can see, that popped off right now, so I'll have to reseat it. And we'll move on to the next step, which will be taking this apart a little bit, not much, in order to get the Walboro pump in here to upgrade it. As you guys can see right now, the pump is apart. So let me explain something. We have 3 different things going on here that I did off camera, but in order to get this inner assembly out, you have to release the tabs from the side. So you see a tab here and a tab over here on the other side. So push those tabs in order to pull it out. But what other people do is they actually cut this hose that goes down here because they think that you can't take it all the way out without cutting it. But if you're careful enough, you can navigate this all the way out without having to cut this. So as you can see, I have it out without cutting it. And then what I also did was release the actual pump itself from this section here by pushing in these tabs on both sides, you can see, which releases it so then you can pull it out. Now, another thing to know too is we're not going to use that filter. We're going to try to clean this one as best as we can, because this filter has the mounting brackets on it. So we're going to transfer this to the other pump that we're going to install. Another thing to notice as well is these leads here that are connected to the pump. They go all the way up to this harness, which also goes over to the lever here, the fuel sender lever. What we're going to have to do is, because this pump does not have leads like that, see, there's nothing to connect to, we're going to have to hardwire. This already comes with butt connectors here. We're going to have to cut these at a certain length where it will make sense for these to be connected, just because these wires are already pretty long. So we're going to have to measure out and see where we're going to cut, and then strip the wire so that we can connect it to the new pump. So a lot of things to do, but as you can see, the cool thing here is that this one already comes with the proper hose here. So it should be plug and play. But per Precision Raceworks, this should be all good to go. So we're about to see once we get everything else connected. I wanted to make a quick note. So this is the new pump here. As you can see, I transferred over the filter. But what I wanted to note was when taking the filter off of the old one, Be very careful. You'll see there's a gap, little gap in the middle there. You're gonna want to stick maybe like a little flathead or something and kind of just go in as far as you can and then pry it off on each side, just so you're putting pressure on each side equally so it comes off correctly and you don't break anything. And you'll see here on the bottom, I'll use the old one as an example. I put the cap over it, but there's a hole there and then a little pin in the middle that you see, like a guide pin. So you're gonna wanna line those up with the filter because the new one also has that same exact setup. So that'll line up so that you install the new filter correctly and it's ready to go. Now the next step is I'm gonna feed this hose through here and clip this back into this part of the assembly and guide these wires through. So I'm not going to connect these wires until I connect these two together. I think that I can do that once this whole thing is assembled. I can go ahead and cut this, strip it, and connect it to this. I don't have to do it right now necessarily. I can get this back together. So that's what I'm gonna do. I was right, so look at this, guys. So it's all back together in one piece. And you can see that the leads here from the new Walboro pump are right here. And the ones that we need to cut are right here. So yeah, you can do it up here instead of having to kind of balance everything and maybe drop it and break it. So this is a lot safer to do it here when it's all together in one piece. So we'll go do that. And once that is connected with those wires and properly sealed, then we are all done with the fuel pump and it's ready to go back in. It is all back together now. And as you can see, I moved down this little wrap down here over the connections and then zip tied it shut just to help out a little bit. Not sure if it's going to do much. And I'm just trusting Precision Raceworks on what they gave me, supposedly plug and play. So we'll see about that. Just took an extra safety measure. Maybe that's going to help and maybe not. We'll see. Also, I think I did forget to film this. The brown wire goes to the red wire and the black wire goes to the white wire. So for this connection, if you guys remember before, my bad on that. I think I forgot to film that. That is how you properly wire the pump to this connector. But it's ready to go back in. So everything's together now. Now it can be put back into the gas tank down below. When we get this back in, we're gonna tip it or angle it to the side to get it in the fuel tank. So we don't bend this bar on the float. We're also gonna tuck it underneath. But once we get it in, we're gonna release it so that it does its job and floats. I will not be fully reassembling this because I was just notified by Precision Raceworks. They're going to be releasing the Z4 version top hat of the fuel pressure regulator. I'll show you right here what the E8X and E9X chassis fuel regulator looks like. It's going to be different from that, so that's why I can't use that one for this car. So they said that that's going to be coming out in a few months. So I thought I might as well just leave this how it is and wait for that to come out so that I can buy it and use that instead. So I'm going to show you guys what to do, but I'm not actually going to do it myself. Here's where we're at now that I have the pump inside the gas tank. And as you can see in the middle there, the hard line that goes across the tank, that smooth black line, is back in the hole on the pump. So I just poked it through. If you guys remember, or if you want to go back, it's just hard to do and film at the same time. But that's in there, and now we have all of these lines. So we still have the line that goes across the tank here as well. So we have to join it with this one. So join this to that, and then the blue and yellow together. And then we have the new line over there. It's kind of hidden over here. It doesn't want to stay out, but that's directly to the Walboro pump. You can tell with it being white because all the other lines are kind of like this brown color. So let's go ahead and join those lines, join these connectors, and then I'll show you the next step. Now you can see that I have the connectors together and then these two lines together. So the one that goes across the tank to the other side and the one to the fuel pump. So that's over there. And then I'll show you guys just so you guys can see. The Marlboro pump line, the white one, is right here. It just kind of won't stay, so it keeps popping back into the tank and getting full of fuel. But that's all together. And now it's ready for the top hat over here that I have just lying down. So now just to note, make sure that your float is free. So put your hand back there and make sure, try to kind of push on the float, make sure that it's free. You'll feel it kind of just springing up and down, so you know that it's working properly. Now this is the step where I'm going to kind of skip out on, but I'll show you guys. So here we have the same connections. So we have one connection that's going to go here, and that is the electrical connection there, and then the 2 line connections. The white Marlboro pump line here will go to the front line here, and the joined connector of the pump and across the fuel tank here that's joined together will go to the rear one here. And then, like I said, the joined blue and yellow connector that I kind of tucked away over here will connect to the back of this top hat right there. And then you're ready to put it all together and put the lock ring back on and tighten it. Just to kind of talk about this a little more, this top hat is unique to the Z4. So that is why I can't use that one that I was talking about from Precision Raceworks. I'm waiting on theirs that they're developing. That should be out in a few months, so then I can upgrade this whole assembly. And that kind of regulates the electricity flow. I believe it's the EKP that gets overloaded with the new pump at a higher capacity. So that is why I want to do that. And with the upgraded top hat, Precision Raceworks also includes fuel lines. So I'll be able to upgrade the fuel lines with that top hat as well. So for now, just to kind of close this off, I'm just going to put this on and kind of slightly put the lock ring back on, just to kind of seal it. Now that the lock ring's back on and the top hat is in, where the blue tape is where the fuel line would go. So the fuel line would go back in. Here's the fuel line. And the electrical connector would plug in. So here's the electrical connector. But like I said, I'm just going to leave it like that until Precision Raceworks comes out with their upgraded top hat, and I'll go back in here and make the adjustments. So basically there will be a part 2 of the video with that upgraded top hat and fuel lines. So look forward to that part 2 if you guys also want to do this kind of upgrade on your Z4. But I did want to show you guys at least me putting back together the assembly. And like Precision Raceworks said, this is a plug and play kit. So as of right now, you'd be able to put everything back together. So put the exhaust back on, the shield and all the reinforcements, and then run the car. And you would have the extra upgraded fueling. That does it for this video, you guys. And make sure that when you go to start the car, you start the car right away. You actually don't cycle the ignition on the car. Because of the high pressure fuel pump, you want to start the car right away, not cycle the ignition so you don't damage that, and you should be all set. But like I said, be aware of the EKP module and the extra amperage draw. I hope that helped you guys, even though I didn't put everything back together because I'm going to be waiting for that top hat. But I'll catch you guys on the flip side.